Bible says the message of the cross is
Foolishness.
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 foolishness to those that are perishing.
Woo!
Hey, you guys, what is going on? This is Brian Sumner. We are hanging out. It is Foolishness episode, 74. And
Wow.
It's crazy. I've got a good friend of mine who's kind of as crazy as I am. He's Canadian.
Almost.
We'll determine that. He's all over the world. He's in the pulpit. He's got a lot of stuff going on. This is one of the podcasts where literally today I got beat up in jiu-jitsu, came home, helped the guy out front with my garden, jumped in the shower. We jumped on this. We don't know where it's going to go. You could take over the podcast as much as you want, but ladies and gentlemen, would you just welcome my good friend Joel Turner on? How you doing, brother?
Hey, man. So good to be with you guys, man. This is awesome. It's a life dream, man, to being on a podcast, you and me. I'm sure there's something that would say this isn't allowed. I mean, it's too much fun, right? But
well, you've got a mask. Well, you're allowed it. You are in the basement, though, right? Of your house. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to pin this on you, Brian, but I'm not sure we ever had that, hey, this is going to be videoed. Yeah. So I thought, I came home and my wife's like, what are you filming today? I'm like, I got a podcast with Brian in the basement, she said. I said, okay, I'll go to the furnace room, honey. Just like you said.
For those who can't listen, go to the YouTube. Joel's hanging out in Canada, of all places.
Yeah.
Pretty much Hawaiian shirt on, some neon headphones, and you got a bottle of Coke right there. I mean, next to a washing machine.
I'm in a furnace room. So yesterday we had snow. So really, basically, if you know much about Canada, I'm just trying to get to the warmest place in the house, bro. It's just safer that way.
Well, you are a lead pastor of Mountain Springs up in Calgary, right? And it's North Coast Calgary, or what do you say?
Well, okay. So Calgary is north of Montana, about a couple hours. So that's the best way of kind of getting your bearings. But listen, I don't know if you know this, but 90% of Canadians, don't tell my Canadian friends this, live within 60 miles of the American border. What does that say about us? What does that say about us? I don't know, man.
So they're all pretty much Americanized.
We all want to be with you guys. I think that's what it is. So
well, just so people understand our relationship. I mean, normally you're the guy that shows up, and I get a tag in an image that says I'm going to Chick-fil-A or I'm going to In-N-Out. Right. Who wants to go? And I scramble over there, and then we just kind of make fun of each other, right?
Pretty much.
Because the rest of the time you're in a pulpit or we'll jump into some of this, but you're traveling, you're doing ministry for Rabbi Zacharias, you're deep in the roots of Calvary Chapel Global. There's just so much going on. So where do you want to start? I'll just hand the podcast over.
Well, man, how about we start where we met? We were out. I think we were in a green room backstage preaching at Creation Fest in England. If you're just listening in, that is upwards of 15,000 people that meet together for a week long of concerts and sermons and just, two guys that are unafraid to say, hey, what's your name, dude? Where are you from? And get to know each other. And I think I was like, I think I
just heard the accent and you were like, I have to meet whoever this is to see if he's okay.
You heard my Canadian accent, and I heard your English, American, Australian. I don't know. It's a combo, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't make fun of you. I tried all three nationalities before you said I'm a mix. I'm a mix, Joel. But then I think you were like, I think I'd just come off stage and you were just going on stage or something. And I said, hey, let me pray for you, man.
Amen.
And then got to go backstage and you brought the fire, man. And I was like, oh, that's my man right there. I like this guy.
And as people are listening, I mean, this is literally, even when Joel says, a green room, what we're talking about is a huge farmland in Cornwall that Calvary Chapel for years has been doing this amazing outreach. We had Sarah Yardley on not so long ago, who pretty much heads that thing up with Pastor Brian Broderson, who we had on. And so what it means is guys like Joel and I, we go in for 5, 6, 7, 10 days, and you might preach 5, 6, 7 times. I'll do a skate outreach. So you're in the zone. It's a battlefield. Then you're hanging out with all these limeys, I can call them, me kind of. So we met, and since then, because you're so close to Calvary Chapel right here, you just began to come in town and hang out. But one of the things I want to say, just leading into this thought, because as a lead, you're as serious but as silly as I am. Like, your convictions have always been Jesus, the gospel, loving your wife, loving your family, the church. But what's been very different is you are just silly and humorous. And a lot of times people don't know what to do with that. I even watched, and it's worth watching, an amazing video of John Piper the other day. And you might have seen it. He spoke somewhere a few years ago, and it was to like Christian counselors. And as he was unpacking like the times I struggle with sin or whatever, they began to laugh. And to me, I would have been laughing because you're like, man, this guy's just opening up. Wow, he's being so serious and sincere, but he didn't know what to do. God bless him. You know, I love the guy, one of my heroes for sure. But he literally said, I didn't know what to do in that moment. And then he said, of all the years I've preached, was it Bethlehem? Was that his church in Minnesota?
Okay, yeah.
He says, I don't even know that I've ever told a joke in the pulpit, so I didn't know what to do. And we're not here, you know, the preaching style, and but so, basically, you're the funny guy. You just wrote a book. Humor me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do we want to go with this?
Well, I mean, like, you know, the Bible makes it really clear that laughter does well to the heart like medicine. So I'm often just going around asking people, have you taken your medicine today? I mean, we are living in dark times, man.
Yes,
where like, where if anything that those of you, look, if you're watching this, you're not a Christian. Hey, let me just ask you, like, what is the foundation of your life? But when your foundation is Jesus, the Bible says the joy of the Lord is your strength. And Jesus said, you know, who for the joy set before him, he went through the cross. Like when you think of those words, like the cross and joy, you don't normally put those together, Brian. But what we see clearly in the scripture is Jesus' joy was two things. One, it was total obedience to the Father. And two, it was you listening or watching right now. His joy was to redeem, which just means to buy back you, your life from Satan, sin, death, demons, the grave, and hell. And basically, you have to know that there was that kind of side smile where Jesus is like, this is going to be horrible to go through in my flesh as a person, but to, man, like put your own name in there. Bob, Terry, Steve, Sarah, Anna, whoever you are watching, whatever your name is, you were the joy that Jesus was like, I'm going through this to get to the cross. And we need to smile more, man. Like, I mean, when we, like, if you're a Christian, maybe you should inform your face, because a lot of Christians these days, man, I'm telling you, they're like, you know,
inform your face.
Well, seriously, how many people do you see? They're like, oh, I'm a Christian, and they look miserable. And it's like, bro, we have the joy of the Lord is our strength. If there's anything, people should point to Christians and be like, how come the whole world's falling apart and this guy's smiling? And so take your medicine, man. And so really, I just wrote the book to kind of go, hey, there's three things that I want to do here. One is I want to help people really dive into what makes something funny. And I wrote a paper on that when I opened a comedy club back when I was 19 years old in Western Canada. So I wrote a paper called Other Side about what makes something funny. And so that it's like, what makes something funny? Can I grow in that? And why does it matter to the gospel? And so
because you were a Christian then. Yeah.
No, I was running have you ever seen the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Of course.
I'm not supporting it, but I'm just saying, not supporting everything they've done. But
I don't get the hate emails. You can say whatever here. You know, like,
you can tell I do. Eh? I'm like, I don't support everything, but they're good guys. So the tall, skinny guy, Ryan Stiles, the shorter, bald guy, they're Canadian, Colin Mockery, and they come from West Coast Canada, a place called VTSL, Vancouver Theatre Sport League. So when I was 17, I was competing in what's called the circuit, competing in one-on-one improv comedy, just suggestions from the audience. And this was back where you would take suggestions from the audience. They could give you one of 300 countries and you'd have to be able to do their accent. You can't do that now. I feel bad for comedians now, bro. It's changed. Oh my goodness. But back in the day, we weren't offending anyone. We were celebrating difference. And that's the difference. But as a non-Christian comedian, I was competing. And then I kind of reached this place where I was like, listen to how this sounds, knowing that I church planted. I reached this place as a non-Christian where I'm like, I want to go and plant comedy clubs across Canada. So I moved to Kelowna with my Mormon girlfriend. Do you want to hear this? Is this So tell the story. All right, bro.
Joel's telling us that he was a funny guy. He was into comedy, doing it just in the world. And then you become you wanted to just go and have comedy clubs. So did you want to make people laugh, or you just had a funny sense of humor? I mean, or both?
I know I was doing stand-up comedy on the circuit. Then I wanted to build
Yeah.
It's weird to call it an empire, but my dream was, what if I start training other comedians in this thing called Other Side? So about 20 comedians started working for me and my Mormon girlfriend. I wasn't a Christian. I've been dating this girl for 4 years, was going to get married to her. We moved to this city to set up this comedy club. And then she dumps me. And I hope those of you listening right now are going, oh, that's so sad because it's painful. But yeah, you're like, no, they're American. They're like, get over it. Get over it, Joel. Yeah, no, exactly. And so she breaks up with me and just hit me really hard. And I did what most guys do. I rebounded and I called some other girl and I'm like, hey, let's go out tonight. And I thought we'd go clubbing. And she goes, I'm already going out to this thing tonight. And I said, okay. She goes, yeah, it's called Refiner's Fire. And I'm like, I've never heard of that club, Refiner's Fire. And then I'm like, it's not a church, is it? And she goes, no, it is. But it's really cool, and it's full of young adults, and you'll love it. I don't know why. If you're listening, maybe you fell for that. But that's what got me, was like, oh, okay. So, you know, I'm like.
So the Gale plus the cool name and the.
Yeah. Right. It was the combination back then. And so I go with this girl, but at the time I was a DJ for the radio station, the rock station in town. I ran a comedy club and I had a TV show called Around Kelowna with Joel. So I was kind of like pathetically a local celebrity. And I remember I didn't want to, Brian, get seen in a church, right? Whereas the Italians say, I didn't want to get made in a church. So I wore dark sunglasses, bro, and a hat pulled down. I sat in the back row. This girl must have thought I was nuts. And although, of course, she was praying for me. Yeah. So I'm like in the back row, sit down, dark sunglasses. Now, somebody must have tipped off the preacher or something, because he comes out on stage. There's a couple hundred young adults. He looks out at the audience, opens his Bible, and he looks around and he goes, hey, Joel Turner's here. And all 200 young adults turned around. And I was so busted. I like sunk down in my seat. And I'm like, man, this is brutal. But
they knew who you were as the comedian. They knew you out there.
Yeah. Wow. And so as a process of this guy taking me out for a coffee, along with someone else giving me a Bible verse, which is a funny story on its own, I surrender my life to Christ. So I go back into the comedy club. I call a staff meeting. I could write a book, my friend, on how to kill a comedy club in 3 months. Listen, if you have a successful comedy club and you need to know how to destroy it, listen to the next part. It's for you, okay? So I went back into the comedy club and I called all 20 comedians together. I said, listen, I just became a Christian. We should all get saved right now. So, yeah, that didn't
they didn't think that was
so well, Brian.
They didn't think that was too funny.
No, some people laughed. They thought I was being funny, but I'm like, no, I'm serious here, yo. What's up? But anyway, half of them quit the club right away. And then and then there was only 10 left. And of the 10, 5 stuck around just to see what happened to their director. And the other 5 came to the Lord or came to church with me, or a combination. And,
so immediate fruit. Just off your boldness. Wow.
Totally. And like I said, I could kill a comedy club in 3 months. I changed the price of the tickets down to like $3 from 18, took out the smoking, drinking, swearing. I wrote near swears for all our comedians because none of them were Christians. And I was like, I was just, Jesus had grabbed my heart and I was like, oh my goodness, we've been lied to, it's like everybody needs to know this. And so I just started like bringing people to the Lord, and all of a sudden the comedy club filled up with young adults. In fact, people always go, oh, how did you get into the ministry? Well, the largest Baptist church in Canada was across the road from my comedy club. And when I say largest, the youth building was directly across the road. They had 450 to 500 youth on a youth night. The pastor of that had about 13 staff members. The youth pastor walks across to the comedy club and he goes, hey, are you Joel Turner? I said, yeah. He goes, you're the director of the comedy club. I said, yeah, this is me. And he goes, I got a problem. I said, what's the problem? He goes, I heard you got saved. And I was like, well, I thought that was a good thing. He goes, no, it's a good thing. But the problem is all my youth and young adults have stopped coming to youth. They're now going to your comedy club, right? And because the word got around, the comedian got saved, the DJ guy got saved in town. So it starts filling up with all young adults. So he's a smart man. He's like, if you can't beat them, hire them. So he hired me as his assistant youth pastor. So people are like, oh, what seminary did you go to? I'm like, I went to theater school. Okay. I didn't go to Bible college.
So you were across the street doing comedy and across the street doing youth ministry?
Biggest Baptist church in Canada.
Wow.
Trinity Baptist.
And how many years ago was that?
Right?
That was like what, 20 years or that?
Ooh, easy now. Yeah, probably 20.
Easy now, I know. I'm 41.
23 years, bro. 23 years.
Crazy. And so how did
45 now.
Well, I know even when I put these out, I really want people to be able to see whatever's in their hand, as I try and say so often, because God made Joel individual, Brian individual, every one of our listeners individual. The comedy and just something that's crazy. I was thinking about this lately in this whole like cancel culture and get rid of everyone and get mad at everyone. And now it's, the white Christian male who's the problem apparently. And I'm like, to everyone, it is better in your life if I am a believer. Because though the Bible says things contrary, and though you might live a certain way, I love you. Joel loves you. You know what I mean? So the fact that and I get it, it's more of a raunchy. You're throwing people under the bus. You're degrading people language. I mean, we know, Joe Rogan, all the rest. But really, for those guys, it's better because now you're going to be more honest. If you're that serious of a Christian, more integrity. So, what is his pitch? Hey, come in and relate to the youth. And then it was a Baptist church. Obviously, they were based in the Word, right? So what began to happen? How did this, and catch us up in a minute, what happened with the girl,
Oh, the girl, nothing, man. Nothing.
Okay.
Shortly after that, another girl who I became friends with, she said to me, listen, I've got a girl that is kind of rough around the edges, party star, bar star girl. That's what we called them back then. And she needs to hear the gospel, and can I bring her to church on Easter and you go out for lunch with us and share the gospel with her? So that girl's name was Tanya. And so I said, sure. So again, it's a Baptist church. So I don't know how PG I can be here, but basically there's a couple hundred young adults. And so I'm sitting waiting for this girl to bring this girl Tanya. And in this Baptist church, all the girls wore long dresses, Brian, the guys wore suits. And I had just gotten saved. And this girl, who was a friend of mine named Dwyla, she was a nursing student. She brought a friend from her nursing program, this girl named Tanya. And so this girl, Tanya, walks across the front row in a mini skirt in a Baptist church.
Whoa.
And I love this stuff now because I think back and I go, this is the gospel. Now, it's a lot of guys, I'm sure, were like noticing her. And I noticed her too, I'll be honest. And then I was like, I noticed her and then I went, wow, I need to lead her to Jesus. She's gorgeous. I'm just being honest. So we went out for lunch and I shared the gospel with her. And then I just kept meeting up with her and sharing the gospel. And then I took her to the same event or program that I went to, the guy that got up and called me out.
Refiner's Fire?
Yeah, Refiner's Fire. She started crying and I tapped her on the shoulder. I said, let's go. Now, I don't recommend this to young adults. You could get in trouble, but I basically found a back room and I shared the gospel and I said, are you ready to receive Jesus? She said, yeah. She broke down crying. She prayed to receive Jesus. And then I gave her about 24 hours, Brian, before asking her out because, they need time to grow in their walk with the Lord. You don't want to rush that. So the next day I asked her out. She said yes. And then she went on, got passionate about the word of God, started sharing her faith with everyone. And then pretty soon we fell in love and got married. So that's my wife, bro. I got to lead my wife to Jesus. It was pretty awesome.
You're in her basement right now?
I'm in the basement, the area she allows me to do things in the house. That's it. So,
is it locked? Are you locked in the basement?
Or? I can't talk about it, although I will say the lock is on the outside. So do the math, but whatever.
But how cool that such practical, basic things. I mean, for one, for that girl to first invite you, that is bold. So many times, I know I can just hear the evangelist in your voice anyway. We'll jump into your book specifically again in a moment. But that's as easy as a witness is. They say the number one reason why people go to church is because they're invited. So you were invited to this event. Obviously, you were thinking about the girl, just connecting with someone, getting over something. The Lord deals with you. A guy points you out. But so how long were you in the youth ministry then? What was that? Like, what were you focused on?
I did that for a couple years, but then a really crazy thing happened. If we're carrying on the story, I did that for a couple years. It definitely whet my appetite for ministry, but comedy was still kind of on the rise for me. And so I started doing these things called double taps, where you do a radio commercial and a TV commercial, and you'd get sponsors that would get a double tap. In other words, they'd get it on TV and they get it on radio. So at the time, the second largest airline in Canada is an airline called WestJet Airlines. And I think back in the day when Southwest Airlines started up, they took their, they were like, we want to be the crazy fun airline, right? Am I right with that?
Yeah. Okay. I've heard the guys on the speaker and they make fun and they joke. And
yeah. So WestJet Airlines said, we want to base our airline approach or model off of Southwest, but we want to crank it up a notch. And so that was how they were thinking. And so they called me and said, could I do a double tap, a radio TV commercial of me going to an airport and trying to go through the checked baggage as a person and see what happened with security and everything. I mean, this was before 9/11, right? You probably couldn't even get that far. You'd be shot or something. Yeah. But so I'm like climbing onto the conveyor belt. I go around the turnstile. We got a cameraman. We film this thing. We send it to head office for WestJet. And they said, can you come and do some stand-up comedy for our flight attendant staff party, 400 flight attendants? I said, sure, I'll do some stand-up comedy. So they fly me out to Calgary, the main office, which is here.
Yeah.
I do some stand-up, and then the CEO pulls me aside and he says, hey man, I want to talk to you. I said, what's up? He goes, we want to be the first airline in the world in the history of aviation to hire a full-time comedian. Would you take the job? And I was like, doing what? He's like, writing one-liners, traveling to bases, buzzing staff, you know, doing stuff in the gates while people are waiting. Oh my goodness, bro. It was some of this. So I left being an assistant youth intern guy, and I moved to Calgary and worked for 4 years with WestJet, training comedy to flight attendants, pilots, believe it or not. Wow. And customer service agents. So that was the next phase that God had for me, if you will. And
which is crazy, because if you were my son and I was only focused on church-looking ministry, I'd be like, well, now you've got this youth. I mean, God called you out of this comedy club. The pastor out. It was maybe prophetic even. So you looked at the world and said, well, of course it's financially there. Of course your wife was there, but you got to then go and interact with all these people that I'm guessing to this day you're probably still friends with. It helped you for your role to be a future lead pastor because you're overseeing people, you're bringing the goods, so to speak. But the amazing thing is, this is all because of humor. If you were to put those things away, would any of these doors open? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, there's some great stories of old. I was reading a book way back in the day. Maybe some of your viewers don't know this guy, but there was a guy named Keith, help me now here, Keith Green. He wrote a book called No Compromise way back in the day. And it was a guy, it was a professional musician, a really high-level musician, got saved, and God was like, put your guitar down. And he thought he'd never use it again. But actually God had a plan, and he picked it back up later and used it for his glory. So that's kind of a similar story. At one point I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be in the ministry, but I'm going to use these gifts God's given me. Comically, when I got in the ministry, I thought, oh, now I can't do comedy at all. So it took a while to use the two for sure. Yeah.
But I actually have No Compromise under my bed. It's a book I've got to get into. I got it years ago, started it. I'd even talked to his wife, Melody, through email years ago. Wow. Keith Green's, I mean, he's powerful. He kind of was getting that stage of like everything's revival, very convicting songs. And from what I hear, as time was going, he was really getting to understand the grace even more, because he was very like, let's go. But so here's the thing that's amazing is you're this zealous young man then. And when we met in England, one of the things you said that was amazing was that as this is all going on as well, later, the last few years, you were contacted by Ravi Zacharias' ministry. And then, so how does a ministry where, I mean, you look at, you know, Ravi, who's obviously gone on to be with the Lord, and but such a delicate, gentle, bold man. How does he find a guy like you? And why does he want a comedian to go to these very serious conferences and speaking places? I know, I mean, this is the gospel. This is using all things to be, so how did that happen?
Book promotional moment. It's in the book. So
we're going to promote the book. I want people who have a sense of humor, funny, to be able to hear the story and be like, you get to be you. You know, you need to
totally
enjoy your Christian. Listen, the Jewish feast, if you look at them, they were parties. They celebrated them.
That's right.
Yes, there was days for mourning,
for sure.
but we should be excited. We should be, I mean, in the midst of this whole COVID thing, it could be crazy. More and more Americans are stacking up on guns. There's more wild. There's more hate and pain, but we have joy. We have joy with what's to come. So anyway, Ravi and the crew.
Yeah, and I jokingly say it's in the book. I just mean the long form of this is probably in there. But the short story goes like this. I was running a outreach in our city called Gravity Church, and it just became known as Gravity, and it was just taken off like gangbusters. Tons of young adults coming to it, upwards of 50 getting saved a night. It was a real, like, what is revival? It's not based on how many people get rocked. It's just, it was revival. And so it had this incredible impact in our city and at the event. And anyway, some of Ravi's pre-team for him coming to our city to speak at a conference, we're at that bunch of guys in suits. So the producer grabs me and she goes, look in the front row, there's all these guys in suits, right? And so they were there. And
were they laughing? Were they laughing though?
They were laughing, but I didn't know what they were there for. And I was doing this thing where I would do, Brian, some comedy at the start, then an apologetic, and then a Jesus passage and a topic, and then a full-on like call to salvation. And Amen. It was great. Some nights up to 50 got saved, and it was just an amazing time. And so they came and talked to me and asked for a coffee, and I said, sure, let's go for a coffee. You go for a coffee. And then basically their story was, we are really good as a ministry at reaching the mind, but like this, help connecting to the heart. Yeah. And that's certainly not, let me just say right off the bat, that's not a commentary on Ravi at all. He's amazing at that. But just holistically, they're training all these guys to go across the world. So they said we do, and I don't have all the details on this. I'm a terrible memory. But basically, I think they pick a different country and a different city every year, if I'm not mistaken, to do this like training center thing. So they're like, we're going to train 200 people, and they're all going to be guys in suits. Can you come and help us have more fun with our message? So actually I went there, and the person on the team was a guy named Andy Bannister. That's the guy that first reached out to me.
I've heard of Andy Bannister.
And became a good friend, and we're good friends now. And he ministers with, I connected him with Creation Fest, actually, with Brian Broderson and Creation Fest. And now he works with them, did work with them up till this year, every year. And he's just a great apologetic guy. If you're looking for a really good guy to read, he's got some excellent stuff. So anyway, he's the guy that reached out. Then he introduced me to, Ravi and his team, like Abdu Murray, and Abdu Murray was really keen on this. And so I did my message that night. Well, I've always wanted to preach on how to use humor and its importance in what we do, but no one's ever asked me, bro. So it was like, I was like a child, that got a new toy. And I mean, cause whoever calls up and goes, hey, could you teach a bunch of, professor level doctorate people how to add humor to their message. So I do this message called Other Side, which is really the principal chapter in the book. And it's about what makes something funny and how we can use it in our message. Afterwards, it was like really well taken. And 3 of the guys, I wouldn't have written a book, but 3 of the guys from Ravi's ministry approached me and said, you need to put this in a book. 3 of his key guys said, this is
good. Who are familiar with books, familiar with speakers, authors,
all writers, all authors, all well-established guys.
Well, we even had Elisa Childers on just recently, and she's big on progressive Christianity, challenging it and all the rest. And it's so true that we're trying to be so relevant to whoever walks in the door. But a lot of times there's not a seriousness, there's not always a reverence, and we begin to like trim the important things off, which you can't do. The thing about Calvary Chapel is it's always been bold and convicting and loving. And that's how when we met, we're both like, okay, we're just on the same team doing the same thing. So you're obviously serious, but it's funny. And what does the message consist of? I mean, are you using scripture and making jokes? Are you just humorous about people? How do you even begin to form that? You
mean to teach these guys on this?
Well, we're going to get into how it went deeper, but had you wrote this sermon like 16 years ago and gone, there's no way anyone would ever let me preach this? Like, were you gathering material?
No, that's good. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. Thank you. It's a combination. You probably know this. I read it somewhere, I'm sure, but you know this. Some sermons you get like the day before and you're like, oh my goodness, that was way too much sweat and tears and blood, right? And then other sermons, they're not born in a day. They're born, like you said, 25 years long. So for me, after I got saved, I went into a church with 2 comedians, and they weren't Christians. The preacher gets up on stage, he tells a joke because he's trying to connect, right?
Yeah.
And I turned to the other, and I turned to the other 2 guys, which were guys that I was training in comedy. And I said, oh my goodness, he just totally butchered the rule of 3s. Yeah. And they go, yeah, totally butchered it. Now you kind of go, what's the natural question you want to know next?
What's the rule of 3s?
Right. So I thought, what if we taught some of this stuff? Look, I don't think this should be a course in seminary or Bible school. I'm not saying that. There's nothing in the scripture that says, oh, we need to have courses on this. I'm just saying, from someone that got saved out of the world of comedy into the world where people are getting up and speaking 40 minutes or an hour every week, it's like everyone seems to want to connect, and they all kind of use humor or are really happy, like John Piper, you said, when they actually do something. They're like, oh, people are laughing. But nobody's ever stopped to go, well, wait, do you know there's a whole world of people over here that this is what they do for fun? And we actually have techniques and things we could, if you're gonna use it, might as well get some pointers. So that's really the whole gist. So I just tried to have some fun, do some comedy with them, and then go, why are you laughing right now? What is it that made that funny? And why does that make a difference to bringing a message across? And so these guys, I mean, I was worried, right? My first joke had to work, right? Because I came out there were guys with like full on tuxedos and bow ties. And I was like, oh snap, if this doesn't work, Lord, I'm going to crawl into the green room. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to
because they're professors, they're serious, they're judging everything. They want to hold the word to a standard. So
do you want to know my opening line? I think I've totally forgot this till just this moment. I walked out on stage. So they had said, you'll love this, actually. I totally forgot this. Let's see if I can, for anyone watching the video, I think you'll like this. See, you got this like glossy magazine here. Okay, so they had sent this glossy magazine about this thick, everybody watching, okay? And in it was this like, it was just a glossary of the people that were speaking at this conference. Okay, so I am in between, in the glossary, I am in between Ravi Zacharias, bro, and some guy whose name I can't remember, but he basically wrote the New Testament in Greek. And he's like the two top dogs of the whole conference, and I'm in between them. So I walk out on stage. I think my opening line was, hey guys, my name's Joel Turner. If you're wondering who I am, I'm in between Ravi Zacharias and I forget this guy's name, but he's like infamous in their world as like the guy that wrote the New Testament in Greek, right? So I'm like, if you look for me in the glossary, I'm in between Ravi Zacharias and this guy, right? And then I said, that's like, talk about putting a Mona Lisa or putting a mustache on the Mona Lisa. I said, that's like putting Mike Tyson in between Abraham and Isaac and taking a selfie. And they lost it. They must have thought that was funny. They just they broke laughing. And I was like, oh, good.
I can step into this now.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, good. I broke and then I think the next thing I said, and these are not polished jokes. If you're watching, there's someone right now going, that was not very funny. But listen, there was, I think the next thing I said was, oh, and by the way, I was tempted because I noticed Ravi has 8 letters after his name and this other guy has 10 after his. I called my wife and I said, babe, I got no letters after my name. And she goes, just put Esquire. That's 7. You'll be good. So that, that's how it all started.
But that's the lighthearted humor. And here's the thing. I mean, you've probably heard me share. I'm very serious when I share because I don't want to get away from the word. I want to unpack this. I'm sweating. I mean, I'm in a hot room right now. I'm sweating. And then when I get off the pulpit, when I get off the pulpit, I'm like as goofy as you are. And a lot of that comes from, I don't mean goofy in a bad way, but that's just like, that's your humor. It pulls people out of themselves. It relaxes everything. It diffuses situations. So you were invited into this. And how many years did you begin to travel? And because obviously seeing Ravi and these amazing apologetics folks.
Sure. Yeah.
People tearing down strongholds, the mind, just preaching the gospel. How long did you go and travel with them? And I only did, I did one thing that lasted about 7 days with them, and I've only done 2 other things with them. So, we would say Andy Bannister, he names himself an adjunct speaker, meaning I'm attached to them. I call myself an adjunct speaker, meaning I'm sort of attached to them. I'm supposed to contact them after writing the book, so I'll probably give them a call soon and be like, they were interested in, when the book's done, call us, then we'll do something else. So I'm like, okay. But everything's shut down now anyway, so what can you even be planning?
Exactly.
And so the book is called Humor Me, and one of the interesting things it says, I just noted on the top, it says, I find Joel very attractive, and that's by Joel's wife. How to add comedy to your brain, your life, and your message. And there's a photo of a pug on there, a black pug, which is pretty be cute.
It's not my best photo. It's not my
No,
best
yeah,
photo.
it resembles you though. People do look like their dogs. So they wanted this to get going. You got it out. You put it out, and it's sold out, right? Like it just went.
Yeah, it sold out 3 times, twice in the States and once in Canada.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, we say sold out. So there's only 12 books available, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I think
no,
it was 13.
Yeah, 13. That's right. Yeah. No, but the publishing house, I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, that's cause to celebrate. So be thankful and we'll restock it as fast as we can. So it's been a really cool thing. Yeah. And it's gotten quite a bit of interest, and so been blessed to be able to speak about it more and this idea
and get it going.
Yeah. And I really do think that it's more about heavenly perspective than it is just about humor, the book.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to hear in your writing the gospel, evangelism, using it. You know, one of the things that I always kind of had a hard time with was people wanted me to stay so much in the skate world, which I love, but I was just focusing on marriages. I just want to start reading and studying. And a lot of times, you know, Joel just mentioned a minute ago, preaching sermons. When I preach at our home church, and it's like a whole passage going through Ephesians or James, I might take 4 or 5 days thinking about that, dissecting it. That is a heavy focus. People kind of get sick. They get stressed. They get wound up. When I'm traveling, and it's more of the other stuff. So it is like, now as a lead pastor, then how much of the humor and what you built back in the day is part of leading the church? Or, I mean, how does a guy like yourself run this big church then, you know? Do you have a couple of serious people around you? Or what?
I have a lot of serious people around me. I have a lot of I really believe, first off, in putting people who are better than yourself at what they do around you. So I have a pastors that are really great shepherds. I'm more of an evangelist. I still love our people, don't get me wrong, just like a good evangelist like yourself. You love people. But my natural affinity is to exhort and evangelize. So even when I teach, it's more preaching than it is teaching, I would say. Although we're blessed in a day and age that you can slip in teaching stuff because it's available. You can learn so much from other guys. But the bottom line for me is, I just, how do I mix humor into what I do? It's time dependent, bro. If someone were to jump on my YouTube channel, they might watch one sermon and be like, oh, that was hilarious. And another one and be like, that wasn't. To me, if it's really dependent on the context of what you're doing. So if I'm going to speak at a massive conference, well, then I'm like, I'm going to crank it up because it connects with more people. It brings the walls down. In a massive conference, nobody knows you, you know, like, so in England at Creation Fest, I typically do some British humor. I can get away with the accent because I'm from there and make jokes about growing up there. And so I use a lot more humor at like Creation Fest or at a conference. But in my home church, no, I'm probably a little more like yourself. Like I usually start with
they're coming to get fed.
Yeah, like I'll break down walls and I'll use comedy naturally as I speak, but I don't have as much time on an ongoing basis to write one-liners. Unless, you know, oh, it's a slow week and, oh, that's really funny. I'll write some one-liners, but I would have to really make an effort, if you know what I'm saying. So.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking through that because for one, it's a gift. It's a bending, you know, like English people have very dry humor. So people often say when I'm speaking, I'll say something and by the time they catch up, I'm on like the next joke or something that's kind of breaking the ice to set up something serious. But so along with that, I just want to even talk for a moment just about here you guys are in Canada. I mean, pastorally, how are you guys doing as a church? I don't doubt that, you know, I did a thing with Stephen Bancars recently that got like 40, 50,000 people view. And so a lot of these new age Jesus people came over, a lot of skateboarders tune in, a lot of just very sweet, you know, moms and dads. So as a pastor, what are you seeing in Canada and how are you just shepherding people? Some people are freaking out right now, you know, just to encourage us as well. What are you seeing at your home church?
Yeah, you know, and again, I would say, obviously, through the lens of an evangelist, I'm going to look at something like coronavirus, COVID-19, all that's gone in the world, slightly different. I call this warped, Brian, but I got excited. It's not that I got excited about.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's not that I got excited about suffering and sickness and those kind of things. Not at all. That's so sad and heartbreaking. And I have a friend of a friend who died from it. I have several friends who've caught it, just like a lot of your listeners.
Yeah.
And maybe some of them listening obviously have it. But I'll tell you what happened. I basically just got really fired up, and two things happened. Right as COVID was hitting, I was having problem breathing out of one side. So I have like a narrow septum. I can only breathe out of one side of my nose. And so I went to the doctor, and she sent me to the respiratory, and they did all these tests. So, and this is right at the time when COVID's hitting. I'm not even kidding you. And I'm generally a non-fearful, glass half full, let's take the hill kind of guy. This doctor sits down with me, and this is just sort of coming out about Italy now and around that time. And she goes,
like February, March.
Yeah, she goes, this COVID thing, you don't want to get it. If you get it, you die. And I was like, okay, thank you. I guess she missed bedside manner training, right? Because she like, you dead. I was like, okay, all right. So I went home, and it's funny because I'm not normally a fearful guy, but total fear came over me.
It's pretty scary. You die. If the other nostril goes, you're dead. You're dead.
You're a dead man. Sign your will. Start preparing things. So I dug a hole in the backyard just in preparation. Told the kids, if Daddy rolls over, just push me in this thing. No, I'm kidding. But honestly, I was all of a sudden fear came over me, and it was spiritual too, man. And I was like, I can't leave my house. Staff people have to drop things off. What if I like it just and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a sense of responsibility with this thing, but honestly, it was an unhealthy, ungodly fear. Yeah. And I'd even preached and said all the verses. What's that?
That's very traumatic. I mean, people don't realize it. When someone gets divorced or someone has an affair or you have a car accident, it doesn't go away. Like, you're forever changed. And someone's saying that. I mean, I'm saying this because even though we're navigating and churches are open and here we are, joking on a podcast, there's just a different climate everywhere. So you're diagnosed with hair diagnosis if you get it. And so what do you go home? You're fearful. You start reading all the verses. You're telling the church this.
My top fear, to be honest, was providing for my wife and kids. It was like, what happens to them, and what kind of example have I set? And so
that's why we're promoting the book today. To get the book out. You don't have COVID right now, do you?
No, this went south fast, didn't it, bro? You're like, okay, this isn't funny, Joel. No, but so then here's what happened.
This is serious. We need to be able to see what you walked through. Yeah,
for sure. So what happened was, it was about 2 weeks of just cloaked with fear. And it's not my nature. And I was hiding in this very furnace room. I actually don't come back here much. Yeah. And so I was like bubble boy. And but pretty soon, God used one of the pastors on staff to just speak into my life, and another friend. And all of a sudden, in a day, I just had this moment where God was like, so what? It's appointed for man to, I might cry, man, this moves me. It's appointed for man to die once, and then the judgment, meaning I know the days of your life. Are they not numbered? Your life is but a breath, Joel, and then it's gone. So if I already know, why do you care? Why do you fear? You know what I mean? Don't walk irresponsibly. I mean, I don't lick door handles for fun now,
Running the road with your eyes closed. Yeah.
Totally,
stuff like
right. Hang out at the hospital just for pleasure. No, but my point is this. It was like it all lifted, and God was like, now go do what I called you to do. And honestly, in our church, bro, from that point on, it was like insane. And we had a bunch of churches like copy what we were doing because God was on the move so much. The first thing we did was we made an invite for neighbors. And I think a lot of people did this. Yeah. And we made an invite, and it was like, check these boxes if we can bring groceries, or if you need a hug or someone to talk to. At the bottom, it was like, come to our online service. Then I'm like, we need to get lawn signs. Everybody's in their home. The only thing they're doing is walking the neighborhood, at 2 meters apart. So let's put signs on the lawn inviting people to our live stream. And then I'm like, first, before we do the signs, let's make our live stream really good. So then we put all this got better camera equipment, gear, and we started, we hired a guy purely to figure out how to reach more people online. That was his solo job, not a Christian. We just brought this guy in because he he's an expert at doing this. And so actually, I don't know if he's a Christian. Sorry, I might have spoken soon. He could be. Yeah. Anyway, the point is we got amped at that. And then we did, this is really cool. We took our small groups in our church. They're called refresh groups. And I said, let's add the symbol plus to that. And let's tell our refresh group leaders, open your house to beyond the 12 we normally give you. And so anybody in your area, your neighbors, your friends can come, stick the sign outside, and let's crank up the refresh groups. So we had like groups that would like move the TV screen out onto the lawn, pull couches out.
Wow.
And they still do this and get upwards of 40 people.
Just sit there and hang out.
Yeah. And they'd watch the whole live stream service and invite their neighbors. So we were seeing some really cool things. We even had the person that, you know, that you're using a Yeti microphone. Yeah. I'm using a Yeti microphone.
Yep.
That they're made by Logitech. Well, the person who represents Logitech for our province, which is like your state, the state of California, her mom lives next door to me. And because we put this invite on her door, and she told her daughter that the neighbor who's from a church was reaching out to her, she goes, well, I want to help the church. So she gave us a camera, and she gave us this incredible microphone, and you know, just for podcast stuff like this. And it was incredible. And then we had people that got saved watching the live stream. Yeah. And then we had a guy, this is crazy. There's a guy who's like a horse wrangler. He was watching the live stream, and we have people all over the world watching it. And we went from, I think, like 80 views on our live stream to over 1,000 on the first week. Wow. And then this guy from, now, again, I say 1,000. We know a bunch of those are like, you know, people clicking
families
on it for
and
like
everything.
30 seconds.
Yeah, but it's also families sitting there, and who knows?
Totally. Who knows how many God reached? But this guy was a horse wrangler just out of town, and he rededicated his life to the Lord. And then he basically was like, how can you use my horses? And I'm like, well, it's funny you say that. I've got a series coming up. And honestly, you guys, you want some fun, go watch this. But I said, I've got a series on the woes where Jesus talks about the woes in Matthew. I said, I'm thinking of calling the series Whoa, Big Fella. Could we meet somewhere and me get on a horse and us shoot a video for the live stream? He goes, well, why don't I just come right up to your house with the horses? I'm like, bro, I live in inner city, like 1.4 million people. I live inner city. There's never been horses in the area. He goes, I know, but Joel, the rules for horses outside of town are way stricter than in town. They just don't have them. Yeah. So he rolls up, bro, with this massive horse trailer. He's unloading horses. I'm going up and down my street with horses. You got, oh my goodness, Brian, this one guy.
Send me the link.
Out filming with iPads. Everyone's filming with iPads and iPhones, and this one neighbor about 4 houses down, he's got his iPad out and he's filming me like this as I go by on this horse. And he goes, it really is the apocalypse now, isn't it?
And you mean horses, not those moose things, because you see mooses everywhere.
No, dude.
Horses are...
Yeah. If I Canadianized this, I would have said that. Hey, more. Yeah, we had moose and we had elk and zambonis, but no, it was just horses.
So everyone's basically, because I say this because I know I mentioned John MacArthur the last few episodes, because in America, you know, he did allow his church. They honored the service. They said, hey, apparently millions of people are going to be dead soon. Here's what we're going to do. And then they had all the news coming out. I know a lot of my Canadian friends up in Edmonton, they were saying, hey, isn't America going crazy? And then as time went on, John MacArthur, who's line by line, book by book, said people just started showing up, and we checked the numbers, and that many people weren't dying, and it's the right to show up. So as that began to unfold, I'm sure you heard the report a few days ago that supposedly only 6% of people that have ever actually gotten COVID, I mean, could possibly even die from it, you know, which is like, it's like a mild.
Yeah, it seems crazy. So that's good. Then it's not just us. There's a lot of people that are like, this seems like over the top. Like there's an agenda here. Because
Europe,
I mean, the stats are you are more likely to get killed in a car accident than by COVID. And before COVID, none of us went outside and went, okay, Lord, I don't want to die in a car accident today. We just lived our lives, But I would say this to anybody that is not a Christian, you can have that peace in Jesus. Mm-hmm. And if you are a Christian, from someone who went through fear and back, God just really smacked me around and said, remember whose you are. Like, I am sovereignly over your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know the days. They're in my hand. So trust me. And I think that's something where all of a sudden it's like people are just tossing trust out the window, bro.
Well, you even just said, your main concern if you were like the nurse said, you get COVID, you're dead. Your main concern was your family. My concern is my family. My concern is, man, where are my kids now? What's happening? But here's the thing. You really don't have control of your family. You really don't have control of my family. We do our best, but if you did get sick, if you did whatever, and we're not saying that thing isn't real. I have friends who are nurses who really are in the trenches and say, Brian, I have seen this where there's radical things, lungs shutting down, all the rest. But here's my point. If you were so concerned with your wife and your kids, and I am, God is way more concerned with us and our families, and God actually knows. He isn't wondering what's happening. And I've made the point about COVID over and over, like, hey, sin is the virus, but here's why. If 2,000 years ago, Joel's family and my family came to faith, what we are saying is these Christians, these Jewish Christians, these Gentiles, these Greeks, whatever you want to say at the time, in the days of the New Testament, these folks right now are going to be persecuted. So you are walking into COVID. You are walking into this. I mean, they were getting hung from this, banned by that, and put on stakes and all the rest. I mean, human torches. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
so now we're freaking out because, and I'm just saying this because along with this, and I guarantee some of the listeners that I already know are just like, man, just go full-blown end times, do a next follow-up podcast. But here's the thing. If you look at it today, Israel's a nation. This whole possible peace treaty, the Abrahamic Accord that just got signed. I heard that Trump even is getting possibly nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. If you're bringing peace in the Middle East, if there's all these things going on, if we're, 5,000 something plus years in the Jewish calendar, what is it, 775? There's so many things going on. I'm an end times guy, but now people that don't even read the Bible are obsessed with this end time. They're obsessed with the vaccine. They're obsessed with the mark. They want to know all these things. And I'm saying this because you mentioned revival casually throughout, and you can fill a stadium of 50,000 excited Christians. I mean, you get the top 5 bands, top 5 speakers. There we go. But revival is when God starts convicting people, and revival is when people open the word and it begins to grab a hold of them. Then he revives hearts.
Good.
Revivals in a comedy store, revivals in a skate park. But then there is a pouring out of radical. I do believe God did special things at the Welsh revival, other revivals, I know
totally.
There was chaos.
I love revival and study that too.
But I'm saying that because in this season, it is you as a pastor, there was a fear and it was faith. And this is for anyone that we'll never know. Maybe messages wherever you are. I mean, literally my wife right now has gone down to her mom's house. I've shared with a bunch of people that her mom has had ALS now for like 3 or 4 months. Her body is shutting down. It is a crazy, crazy disease, and someone had asked me, how do you even have faith in God? And I go, well, the only way I even make sense of ALS or COVID or what happens to kids or the craziness that's probably going on behind the scenes with all these, satanic families and the occult and Satan who rules this age right now. The only way to even make sense is in Christ. If there's no Christ, it's not good for you, because eventually survival of the fittest, something like COVID is going to wipe you out. You're going to be done. And it's simple. So yeah, what were you going to say though? Yeah.
No, preach it, bro. I'm with you. And if you do one on end times, that is literally my favorite topic. So
okay. So where are we?
Come on. You and me, we're so close. My goodness, bro.
Let's just go. Where are we? You look at Matthew 24.
Yeah, I
Mark
just
13,
preached
Luke 21 as its future, right?
Yeah.
You're not post-mill. Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, well, this I will promote, but I thought it was really interesting that right as I was dealing with this fear, we're just going book by book, chapter by chapter through the Bible. We hit Matthew 24 in Matthew at the start of COVID. Yeah. And I preached a series called Awaiting Arrival, which literally spanned the whole of the last, 4 months, 5 months. And I brought in some well-known guys to teach it with me, Amir Safadi, David Guzik, John Huang. So guys that are well-known.
Living in Revelation right now.
Yeah, eschatology guys. And we taught it together. And oh my goodness, bro. Woo!
Good.
It's just my favorite subject. Yeah, it really is. I think I don't know where to start. We're closer than we've ever been.
Well, I mean,
that's the obvious
book starts with saying, blessed are those who read this. Blessed are you because you're going to hear the truth. And there's just too many things for me in Matthew 24 that I believe are future. Daniel, let's see, Daniel 9, a lot of as well. I mean, they were the verses I pretty much came to faith on. And if you're looking at the world today, I guess the thing and I'll just be open, it's Brian's podcast, the Lord knows what we're doing. But if you wanted to sabotage a nation, you just divide them over race, and you set them up to where they're either super mad at Trump people are going to go vote for, Biden. And the kind of videos you're seeing of him, the things he's doing, the things he said that just sounds so crazy. I'm not a political guy, but I'm like, I get Trump's an older guy who said some things, but I'm looking at either side and going, you're potentially going to have a nation that's on fire and there's riots and it's crazy. And you've got one side saying, we don't want any police. We want to be able to defend ourselves.
Crazy.
Patriots have gone out and actually defended themselves, and they're mad at it. So I'm saying you make everyone super angry at Trump. Then if he wins, the other side goes crazy and what happens? Or if he loses, does the other side go crazy and then the Patriots respond? And I'm just saying that alone, the fact that there's so much there that's like, and I'll just say this, people who are not part of America, I seen a clip the other day of a soldier, high-level soldier, who went into like in a whatever setting it was, a lot of government leaders and such in his town. And he said, I just want to rebuke you and tell you many of my friends who went to war for this nation, 6 of them took their lives since this shutdown. And he goes, this is a farce. I'm paraphrasing. Only 6% have been this serious. They lost their jobs, lost their homes. These men shot themselves. And they go, I want to tell you, if the police had funded, these are men who went overseas to defend this nation. And when they see people in this nation doing what they're doing, it's going to trigger. And they're going to begin to fill the streets. And he goes, there's 1 million people like me. And he goes, I hope you're ready. And I'm just saying, that alone is crazy. They said gun sales are up like what? 400%. 2 million. It's America's getting to where it's crazy, to where we look at the book of Revelation. And I don't think all those things have triggered. Yeah, it gets very radical. Things hitting the earth. Men's hearts will fail them. The love of many will run cold. We can go crazy. So, yeah, thoughts.
Well, we should do a podcast just on this, bro.
Yeah.
Because hold on. Wouldn't you know it? Someone's calling me. I'm just gonna get rid of this. How did I not turn that off?
I've done that a few times.
Awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So, but basically, there's so many ways to look at this. First of all, Ezekiel 38 prophesies a day when a nation will put on flesh on the bones, the dry bones. Now, you often hear like worship conferences promote, we're putting on the flesh on dry bones, and that's great, but that's not the context. The context is the nation of Israel. The question is, can a nation be reborn in a day? And it's never happened before. You'll never bump into a guy at the mall and be like, where are you from, dude? Oh, I'm from San Diego. How about your friend? Oh, he's a Canaanite. No. The Canaanites are gone. The Amorites, Hittites, Phoebites, all of them. They're all gone. So, but the nation of Israel was reborn May 14th, 1948. This has never happened before. Now, take just Jesus when he walked along. Now I'm getting excited. When he walked along with the disciples and they passed a fig tree and he cursed it. Now, that's a weird story. And people are like, well, why did he curse that fig tree? The disciples are like, why are you cursing the fig tree? And he goes, that fig tree won't give fruit until
bear fruit.
Right. It's not going to bear fruit. Until when? Until 1948. Israel is the nation of the fig tree. And he says the generation that sees the rebirth of the fig tree, generation will not pass away. Well, okay, the argument, how long's a generation? So we don't know. I mean, the best estimate in the Bible is David at one point in the Psalm says, do you not know that a person's life or generation is 70 years long? Okay, fine. Maybe that's when it is. But you've got a problem then because that's 2018. I think the point of this is, you want to know how near you are to the last days? Take the generation of 1948. And is there anyone still alive that was born in 1948, Brian? Yes, there is. That means that that's how close we are,
80
I believe.
to 100 years if it was to be that far. And also, then you got 1967. Then you've got even what Trump did, which is crazy. You know what Trump did, right?
Oh, yeah.
Same day, but then May 18th, 2018.
Even when you look at Ezekiel 38, okay, so we believe that first of all, I would say that The rapture is a signless event, meaning it can happen at any time. The Bible, people say, well, the word rapture is not in the Bible. Well, it's probably because you got the wrong Bible. It's the harpazo, means to be caught away by force. So when he says in 1 Thessalonians 4, I think it's verse 13 through 18, that chunk of scripture, he said, we'll be caught up to meet the Lord in the air. Harpazo. There it is, rapture. So it is in your Bible. And it was just translated into English through that word. But the point is this, like, there's going to be a catching away. And I believe when you look at the timeline, Ezekiel 38 says in the very last days, it says it 3 times, these nations will be surrounding Israel. Now, Brian, this alone is probably the craziest indicator of how close we are. In Ezekiel 38, you have all these nations that formerly hated each other, Russia, Iran, Turkey, and they are aligned outside of Israel
500 plus years ago.
And so, you know, you have what we look for in prophecy, and I would call myself as much a prophecy guy as an evangelist or a comedian, but what we look for in prophecy is very patternistic, meaning what? We read things very like sequential when we go, well, this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Your Bible's not written that way, and Jewish writers don't think that way. When they think of prophecy and writing, they think patternistic. So, but we have some indicators of things that all look like they're happening at the same time or right as the end times. Take, for example, Isaiah 17, the destruction of the city of Damascus. If you come on an Israel tour, you overlook Damascus from what's called the Golan Heights. And I have so much fun because I take tours there and I point out the Golan Heights and I go, that area right there, guys, is where some crazy stuff's going to happen. Damascus is the longest standing city that has not been destroyed, inhabited, the longest inhabited city-state on earth, because the nation of Syria is a city-state, and Damascus is that. It's not been destroyed yet Isaiah 17 says that right before the return of the Lord, guess what? It shall be wiped out. Well, we just saw Lebanon the other day take a massive hit. It was all over the news. These are things that prepare people for one day seeing similar, and I think it's right around the corner in Damascus. That'll be the trigger or the light, I think. But all these nations that Ezekiel 38 says, they are right now, they are camped exactly where Ezekiel 38 says. Right,
even the peace accord, it's done behind the scenes. It comes out, Jared Kushner. You know, it's funny and people say it's all conspiracy, but when you live at, 666 Fifth Avenue, you're tied to, I mean, Netanyahu says we've known him since he was a little boy. And again, I'm not someone that says this is it. I do believe you'll know the season. It says no man knows the day or the hour, but I believe that is pointing to Rosh Hashanah, that festival, because they wouldn't have known the day or the hour. But he says, brothers, you are not in the dark. You are in the light.
That's an interesting concept. Yeah, because obviously Rosh Hashanah, September 18th to 20th, it's the only Jewish feast where we don't actually know the day. Why? Because the priest has to come out and he looks up in the sky, right? And he's waiting for the right signal.
The moon crescent.
And when he sees that crescent, then they blow the trumpet. So
how many trumpets do they blow? How many trumpets do they blow?
That's a great question. Is it
99? 99, and then 99. A final one. So Jesus fulfilled the first Jewish feast. We know that.
Yeah,
we're in this period of the Gentiles. And if this is accurate, because God is a God of signals and signs, Genesis, and there's the few left. And if that triggers, and this is all, of course, going with a more Calvary theology, a more Chuck Missler theology, rapture, caught up to be with the Lord, so much going on, his return, while a lot of other people might say, and here's the thing I've always looked at, I believe that this son of perdition, so to be, or in the middle of a tribulation, that's when you're going to see this temple or this sacrifice. But I believe the first 3.5 years could just be a spiritual darkness. Like, I never thought I would see people running in the streets, setting things on fire. I never thought I would see more black people dead through riots over a black person and possibly by black people, and then dumb white people going out who are offended at everything, smashing stuff up, just inciting things. That's like an evil I've never seen. There's not even like a justice.
So from up here in Canada, looking down, and we find it really interesting that, like, to me, I think the tinderbox is just like ready to blow, because I look at, like, look, if Trump gets in, you're going to have a revolution on your hands, possibly. if he doesn't get in and Biden gets in, the first thing he's going to do is pull out support from Israel. And the Bible says, I will bless thee that bless thee. And once that support goes from Israel, then the enemies that are waiting outside the doors will get a green light to attack the Golan Heights.
Crazy.
And so you know what? But the cool thing is all the, like, what we do know is that the Antichrist will broker a peace agreement for 7 years, peace treaty. And he will bring about the rebuilding of the third temple. Now, here's how close we are. The third temple, all the articles are already built. And I take tours there every couple of years. The menorah is right there, this massive 8-foot golden candlestick. Have you seen it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
it's right outside the Wailing Wall.
I love studying the CAD drawings are designed, the red heifer. They know the lineage of the priests. And here's the thing that I was amazed to hear. They said, we don't actually need a temple. We just need an altar. They said, we can build an altar out of breeze blocks. You don't need, because they actually did a practice one, last year?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's right.
Here's the thing. Where they say the wall was, they say that's probably not the wall. They say it's probably in the old city of David. And they say they believe there's more artifacts. They say the Ark of the Covenant in Jeremiah's grotto. Yeah. And I've never been to Israel. I just study all this. I just love, for anyone listening, get into this.
When I take tours, like I'm leading a tour there next October, you should come, bro. It's a blast. Yeah. But when I take tours there, I show them all the articles for the temple. I show them the menorah. You can take photos with it. People are like, well, the enemies of Israel, why do they leave the menorah right there? Someone could steal it. I'm like, okay, it's 8 foot tall, 6 feet wide. It's solid gold. Nobody's walking out of there. It's also the most televised place on earth.
Sovereign. It's not. You want to go near that? Those witnesses are going to call down fire in the end times. And
I'll tell you something funny. You'll love this. This is a Mufasa moment. Are you ready? Yeah. So I went up to the Temple Mount, and my tour guide, who actually got to lead to the Lord, he's a Levitical Jew. He was a grumpy guy. Woo! You got it?
Yeah.
All right.
A Levitical Jew. Moment.
Yeah. And he's a bit of a grumpy guy, and he got saved on the Mount of Olives when I was preaching on this very topic. On what we're talking about, the return of the Lord, the Kidron Valley, Jesus marching up into the temple.
Yep.
And so I took them through all the artifacts, and guess what? They think that the temple can be rebuilt, Brian, in 90 days. That's all it takes them, because they built so much of this stuff off site. You know what else? For years and years and years, they've been looking for the perfect heifer, because they have to have the perfect red heifer. Guess when they got it?
When?
This year for Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
So, bro, I
seen the headline, and I did see
it's crazy.
They actually brought, goats from Canada that had the same spots as Jacob's goats, and they'd never been in Israel in years. So for those listening, I hope there's people listening who are just like, oh, what are these two guys talking about? And I'm saying, and a couple of things I always tell people who are doubting their faith, maybe don't know.
Yeah.
I always tell people, watch Ray Comfort's God vs. Evolution, because it's amazing. Scientifically, talk about biology and things. And I always tell people, watch the real Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's 40-something minutes long, and it's crazy. It's literally crazy. I believe that's Mount Sinai. It's a guy from Huntington who was a cop. It was a guy who was a multimillionaire. And you see the video, and you've got the stone cracked 40 feet high. You've got the black on the mountaintop. You've got Elijah's cave. And then you've got the government that wants no one to go in there. And I'm going back, of course, to why we're talking about the menorah and God's sovereignty. God puts people in office, oversees a nation. Sometimes he'll bring people in to cast judgment because of the sin. Sometimes he'll lead them a certain place. I believe Satan gets to have rule and reign over so much stuff, even the Cardi B stuff that's on TV and some of the crazy things that are happening with the industries and the actors and stuff that we don't really care about. It's a podcast. We can talk about it. But I believe God leads a nation certain way, lets it trigger, and Satan can't control that. He gets to do certain things like he did with Job. God allows it. But I think we're hitting a head now where it's like, well, where do you go? They said 2/3 of Americans won't take a vaccine. You can't have a vaccine without a virus. And once you have a vaccine, I'm not saying that's a mark or chip, but the fact that Revelation just says you will not be able to buy or sell. Apparently, there's a coin shortage in America now. It's getting more plastic. It's getting more digital. So, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to go to Israel next year, to be honest. I think
No, I don't know either, man. Like, honestly, like, it's like the church thing. I'll tell you some cool thing. I mean, there's so much I want to share with you about this and with you, bro, because I'm so primed on this too right now. It's just super exciting. I mean, there's a ton of things, right? Like, take even, who's the Antichrist. And that's interesting about Kushner. I had not heard that. Yeah. I know also that Macron is looking very interesting to me. Emmanuel Macron, his first name means God with us.
Has no children, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no kids. And some of the stuff around that guy right now is crazy. Some of the things that match up with his story.
A world leader, someone of influence and power. Israel's going to receive someone that brings it in that way. People don't realize this. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Well, he said Trump's peace treaty is slightly off. I'm going to make a better one. So we need somebody to rise up with a 7-year peace treaty. He also, I mean, we don't know this, but The Economist, you can Google this. The Economist has a picture of him walking on water, and it says, "Our Savior." There's so many things around that guy. And I'm not a real predictor. I'm not like, the world ends. That hasn't gone well for anyone. The Bible says no one knows the day or the hour. Yeah, perhaps that's talking about the feast. I think we think that's a good bet that it is.
Specific day and hour, but it's the seasons. You watch. Yeah. What are we watching for if we can't see? Yeah. And also you got to realize that the whole Rosh Hashanah festival, Jesus is a groom. He's going away to prepare a place, and the Father releases him, and he comes back to get the bride. The Bible's the story of marriage. So he wouldn't know if you're practicing out the ritual. But also when he said that in Matthew 24, are we to believe that in heaven now Jesus doesn't know? Are we to believe that he doesn't know all these things? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, for sure. God. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I agree with that entirely. And I believe with that whole approach. I would also say this, the Jewish wedding is really interesting because it's funny. A guy in my church was like, "Hey, Pastor Joel, I'm leading a Bible study at our university. It's amazing that I get to do this. I'm going to do it on end times. How do I get them to believe that the rapture happens first and then the 7-year tribulation?" I said, "Bro, you don't have to get them to believe. Take people naturally through the Bible, and it is the most common thing. You take all the way from, you take Noah. He's rescued, him and his family, a remnant caught in. The Bible says God shuts the door from the inside. So they are in this place with the Lord, enjoying the fellowship with the Lord and each other while the wrath is poured out on earth. It's a picture. Not only is that a picture, but the Jewish wedding. I mean, the groom goes and collects. He doesn't collect his bride until he does what? He has to build all these rooms onto his house. Jesus said in John 14:1, "I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many rooms," or some translations say mansions. So, what's Jesus doing right now? He's preparing this massive house with extra rooms. Well, the Jewish wedding, he would go and prepare extra rooms for what? For his wife and all the kids are going to have. Then do you know what he did, Brian? He would stockpile this house with food. Why? Because he's going to collect his bride at an hour she does not know. So she has to be ready. Listen, church, she has to be dressed and ready to roll. He collects her. It's a surprise. She throws on the dress. They march through the streets. And this is so cool. A lot of people don't know this. As the groom is coming, by the way, if the people in Jewish customs see the groom coming, they are to yell ahead on the street, "He's coming quickly. He's coming quickly," so that the word reaches her house before he arrives. Isn't that amazing? Then he collects her. The father gives the bride, and the groom takes the bride back to his house for 7 days. And they consummate the marriage and feast for 7 days. Well, the Bible says we're going to be caught up together. We will be with the Lord, and we'll have 7 years of feasting, what's called the marriage supper or the feast of the Lamb, while the wrath of God is poured out on earth. But don't be discouraged if you're listening, because I actually think that will be the greatest revival in the history of the world on planet Earth amidst all the chaos.
And even people say, I remember just everything was Armageddon, and you realize the word Armageddon is the word Armageddon, and it's the valley, the Jezreel Valley. I remember just coming to faith and realizing, wait, that's a real valley. I mean, Petra, the cutout rocks where people are going to, and I get it. There's guys I listen to, like, Jeff Durbin, who I love listening to his stuff. There's so much for abortion and witnessing to the Mormons and all the rest. And he's more of I think he's like a post-mill guy, like those things happened. I get it. But I believe personally, those things are foreshadows. When the church is taken up, I'm like, I lean towards the same, like a obviously a rapture, like John MacArthur believes many people, and also a lot of my friends that are very known theologians that I won't say their names, but
Sure.
a lot of them don't really even have an end times eschatology, because they just go, we just think that's just going to unfold however. I mean, as is someone I really look up to who years ago had sent me
I struggle with that.
I do,
Yeah,
because I like,
not
why,
to be controversial, but
yeah, why
it's
not
like
just go and unpack it? Yeah.
Well, 1/4 of your Bible is prophetic in nature.
And it's
So
the counsel of
you
God,
couldn't,
yeah.
with good conscience, say, I'm just not going to touch on 1/4 of my Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to dive into it. I think even the picture of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his three best friends, you know, is a picture of the rapture and also the tribulation period on earth. Why? Because you have a wicked king saying, take the mark, bow down, worship me. Three guys amidst that, if you would, during the tribulation, are put in a fiery furnace, but God stands in there with them. Where's Daniel the whole time? He's not in the story.
Yeah.
He's away.
He's
away, just like the church is. So I think there's so many pictures. I'm just giving you a few, but
and I look at it just like Enoch was taken up first. He's a Gentile. He's gone. And then the Jewish after the covenant, Elijah. So who would you think were the two witnesses then?
Yeah.
Would you think it's Moses and Elijah or Enoch and Elijah? Because Moses died. Enoch and Elijah never did. Yeah.
How about this, Brian? We just put a satellite now that we can connect the last continent as of 2 years ago, the last continent on planet Earth, Africa. Now, everyone in Africa can see anything on CN News. So the Revelation 11, what you're talking about, the two witnesses, it says the whole world will see them. We could only fulfill that prophecy 2 years ago for the whole world seeing them at the same time. The technology is in place now that if these two guys show up on the scene and do something crazy, everyone's going to see it. Every single continent, every single, city.
And these die in the streets, and then they rise after 3 days and call down fire. And people forget,
times, bro.
If you read Revelation, a lot of people say it's just poetry or it's just pictures. There's very specific, radical, sci-fi looking things, like the abyss is opened. I mean, there's creatures on the earth like never before, the way the planet is. I mean, and I'll tell you, I'm getting sent all these videos on the New Age. And these people are like, hey, it's the next moment, and Christ consciousness is coming, and the oceans and the gravitational pull and the planet. And they're all about it, but they're missing that, no, when these events happen, like I said, it says, I think in Luke 21, men's hearts will fail them, if I'm right with that verse, for what will come upon the earth. And it's the seas and the oceans. I mean, so we went from comedy to the but that's why I knew it'd just be an open podcast.
We gotta come back, bro. This is so fun.
Yeah,
I think I think I mean,
closing thoughts. Like, what do you got? Yeah, we can go to a full-on Revelation. Yeah, we can do a full-on end times.
Let's do it sometime, man. It'd be so fun. It's already been so fun. I would just say, look, I mean, the whole emphasis for me, as far as how do you connect end times and humor me? I didn't write the book Humor Me simply because the guys from our Ravi Zacharias ministry said I should. I went away and prayed, and the Lord said, you need to write it. So it was like, why did I write the book? Not because I didn't write it because I wanted money. In fact, any new author knows you don't really make money off your first book. That's not the point. The point was God put it on my heart to write it because people need to get an uplook, and humor and laughter, the Bible says, is medicine. And we are in a day and age where everybody's head is dropped, everybody's head is down. And Jesus himself said, when these things begin to happen, look up, your redemption draws nigh. And so the whole, in other words, it's close, right? And so the whole point is, humor is really a perspective that says we can laugh because God is on the throne. And we need to stand out as these shining Christians in this day and age. And that's, to me, the link between the two. I'm not trying to make it work. It does work. It's like, guys, in these last days, we should be the lighthouses individually and as churches. I have pastors call me and they're freaking out. They're like, what do we do? They're like, oh, Joel, I can't even get the church to come to me. So you know what we're doing? I'm telling these guys, then go to the church. So I'm doing this thing called Traveling Pastor for the entire month of September. I am bouncing around all these Refresh Plus bigger, giant, small groups of 30 to 50 people. I'm driving to their houses and preaching on the lawn. And bro, Acts 8:4, I'll close with this, says, and they were scattered And everywhere they went, they preached the gospel.
Yeah.
The scattered part was a fact in the early church. They couldn't change the fact they were scattered because they were being persecuted. But what wasn't a fact is they had a choice to say, let's go. If the church can't come to you, go to the church. And so Paul and these guys, they rode around and preached the gospel wherever they went. So we're doing this traveling pastor thing. The graphic for it is like me on a VW van.
I thought you were going to be on a horse like Jonathan Edwards. I mean, just
we've upgraded to we've upgraded to a Westphalia VW van, bro. So so the graphic is like, we'll travel around. So I've been doing these and they're so amazing. People are like loving the fact that you're, but like pastors, I want to challenge you, get out there, like go to your people. Don't wait. Oh, they can't come because they've locked down our church. Look, this isn't persecution yet. Do you understand? I'm amazed. This one, can I just say this, Brian? I think people are like giving this whole persecution line too quickly here. Okay, like when World War II happened and the bombings happened in London, Churchill asked all the churches, hey, don't meet at night. He's like, because when you have the lights on, it makes it easy for bombers to drop bombs on you. So don't meet at night. Now, listen, his wisdom was, hey, we would like you to accept what we're asking because people could get hurt if you don't operate with wisdom and responsibility. Well, that's what's going on today. But then it's like, he wasn't saying don't do church. Nobody's told me I can't do church yet. They're just saying, well, here's what we're suggesting. No, I know. In California, they've gone a bit, your guy down there's gone a bit ridiculous. But my point is this, guys, we can still get out and meet people in the highways and the byways and
in the
church.
Park, wherever. A lot of people
you just got to try. You got to make an effort to get out there. That's what I would say.
So Joel's got his book out. And so Humor Me, where can you get it? Amazon?
Sure,
online?
Amazon.ca in Canada for the 2 of you Canadians watching, listening. And then in America, it's Amazon.com. In England, of course, it's the UK, Amazon. Or you can also go to kwave.com. Kwave is the publisher. And so Calvary Chapel, Calvary Global Network.
And then your Instagram and your website. What's all that info?
Sure. Reach Joel Now is my Instagram. You can get it through there. And our YouTube channel, I think, is mountainspringscc.com. So, or cccom is, and our, but I would encourage people, if you're into the end times thing, we just finished a series all through COVID called Awaiting Arrival. So I think our church is super fired up, Brian.
And it's Mountain Springs CCC, or what's the exact website?
No, mountainspringscc.com is the website. And you scroll down, you'll get to the YouTube channel right there. Click on it.
Well, I want to say this. Series. You started with just talking about joy, and I, that I say it a lot, but there's childlike faith and then there's being childish. And we're not here to be childish. Even when we said, man, we're excited. We're not excited anyone die with COVID. We're not excited that people are going through hell. And we're excited because it means people are waking up to the things of God. People now, whether it's down conspiracy trails or whatever, checking the local news, they're starting to think the more about their rear ends and their bank accounts. And you know what I mean? Woe is me. And I'm not saying that in a degrading way, but we're so distracted by the fruit that was in the garden still. That's still Satan's tool, 1 John 2. So I'm saying this to say there's been joy. We're hanging out. You didn't know it would be a video. I'll get this thing soon. But, I
would have done my hair better.
Put a wig on or something. But the reality is I hope you guys have heard this and seen, look, I mean, Joel's in another country, way up north in Canada. And he's got joy, he's got peace. We don't know the day. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not controlled by an election, a president, a leader. We're in love with Jesus Christ. And even in our worst days, we know it's only Christ that can really lead us and secure us. So I hope you guys are encouraged. Please get a hold of Joel or me. Send prayer requests. Hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and all that. We both interact with people. We actually use social media to be social with people. I notice you do that as much as I do. But if you want to just pray us out, and then
let's do it now. Let's do it. Lord, we are so excited. All these things that we see in the world right now, they're either all falling apart or all coming together for the return of the King. And they are the second. That's how we see it, Lord. Everything's not falling apart. It's coming together for the return of the King. And we are excited for your return. And we know that, Lord, you told us in this world we will have tribulation. That's different than the 7-year tribulation. It just means, of course, there's pain. Of course, there's chaos. Of course, there's craziness. But have good cheer, which is joy. I've overcome the world. So I do pray that you would grow people in their joy for the Lord, their cheer, their laughter today, that you would put a smile on their face. They would take their medicine that they need to take, which is the joy of the Lord as your strength. Thank you for my brother, for the impact that you're using him for the kingdom. It's so awesome to see. And we just pray that a lot of people will be blessed by this. And we get to do it again soon for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, what I'll do is I'll lay out some timelines, some variations on end time, so we can unpack them from the start. And then we can just go. And I'll even have some guests and people ask. But guys, this is Brian Sumner. This is Joel Tanner. This is the Foolishness podcast. And share the videos, like the videos, write comments. I know it's corny, but the more people that see and hear, the more they hear about the gospel. And remember 1 Corinthians 1:18, the message of the cross is foolishness to those that are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it's the power of God. Thank you for those who support personally the ministry I do. Thank you for partners and your prayers. And God bless you all. We love you guys. Amen.